Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, a serial technology entrepreneur, a guy who's launched 30 companies, failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 of those to success. I turned that roller coaster of a ride into my book. It's called Fail Hard, Win Big. And this is where I teach you how to turn failure, whether it's a venture, whether it's a project, whether it's something else, but how you turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage, and then how custom software played a defining role in every company's success I've had. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We are a nearshore software engineering firm helping existing engineering teams scale. And today I am joined by a fun guest out of the San Jose, California area, Silicon Valley area, Raj Mallempati, who is the CEO and co-founder of BlueFlag Security. He's been a tech industry veteran, held senior roles at Adobe, VMware, Malwarebytes, Microsoft, and now is the CEO of BlueFlag Security. Raj, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here on the show.
Raj, if you would, walk our listeners through this fun journey of being a tech leader in large and small companies and what led you to launch your current venture.
Yeah, absolutely. What I always say to folks is that I have been an engineer at heart, and that has actually helped me build different businesses, either in larger companies early on or as time progressed, sort of building new ventures from scratch. So just in terms of overall sort of just my journey, right? I was, as I mentioned, engineer both from a development perspective as well as professional services in Asia Pacific early on. And then I realized that actually, the fun part for me is building new ideas, right? Early on, both at Adobe and at VMware, I actually helped build up a new sort of business unit within the construct of a larger company, right? And again, just to put things in perspective, especially for VMware, this was back in the 2007 timeframe, right? So I think we were about 1,500, 2,000 people. And the goal then was to build up what we called at that point in time a desktop virtualization business, right? So fundamentally, how do we actually help our customers take concept of virtualization and apply it to the desktop environment, right? That was my early sort of foray into building a business from scratch. So it was an idea. I think, again, Steve, as you mentioned, we built up the platform, learned a lot from our early mistakes, right? If anything, I would say, learn fast, fail fast, right? That was certainly something that I learned, again, early on in my...
I wish there was a better way than to fail than to truly learn something. But I think that's just as humans how we're built.
Yes. And then look, VMware was a phenomenal company. Honestly, I would say the luxury of making mistakes. And we made some mistakes in terms of how to go to market, even some of the product pieces super early. But again, that was a great building platform, a platform to help understand how to build companies, right? So that was certainly my first, I would say, real sort of mega success. We were able to build a business from zero to close to like 600, 700 million over a period of 6 to 7 years. And again, kudos to the team in terms of helping us actually scale the business, right? And then post that, it was Mobile Iron. I joined the company about 6 to 7 months before we went public. And the goal was to help the team go public and at the same time scale the go-to-market, right? And then post that, Malwarebytes, and then my previous, the previous company was Cloudnots. Helped the founder early on in terms of fleshing out the idea, and then later on joined to scale the business, right? When I joined the company, we were, we were pretty much less than I think 50K or maybe 25K in terms of overall revenue. So we helped in terms of A, establishing a market, B, also sort of repositioning the company from being a narrowly focused solution to a broader cloud infrastructure security platform, and then scaled the business pretty rapidly. Super fortunate to sell it to Microsoft, right time, right place, and actually it was the right even the right market space. And then that led to the current company, which is BlueFlag Security, right? But fundamentally, the reason we started BlueFlag Security, Steve, was because we discovered early on that there are some huge gaps in terms of securing the overall development environment or SDLC environment, right? So early on, just focused on identifying the gaps, talking to a bunch of CISOs and CTOs to flush that out. And then we came out of stealth about 15 months ago, and we've been scaling the business pretty much for the last 15 to 18 months. It's been quite successful, but like I said again, Steve, every time you build a company, it's always a journey, and every part of the journey is different than the previous company that you build.
That is true. Well, thanks for sharing that on your background. And you've certainly touched a lot of companies in tech, gotten to see a lot of things. So tell us more about BlueFlag Security. What do you guys do? Who's your target customer? Tell us some more.
Yeah, so at BlueFlag Security, we're building the first identity-centric SDLC security and governance platform. So what excites us is the fact that if you think about the existing developer security or AppSec platforms or tools, they primarily focus on identifying vulnerabilities in code reactively and fixing it, right? But what excites us is that here at BlueFlag Security, we're not only correlating developer behavior, all the code-based risk, and toolchain posture, but we are in fact also redefining how enterprises can secure the development future in an AI-driven world. Honestly, we see agentic AI as the new developer, right? What it's doing is obviously it's accelerating the velocity, but it also introduces new risks and also new new identities, right? So fundamentally, what we are doing is we're creating that security fabric that will allow enterprises to innovate, to build new applications at the speed of AI, as I call it. But the more important thing is with trust and resilience baked in, right? That's again key, right? So it's kind of the yin and yang, as I call it, right? Fast, high velocity, but secure by design and secure by default.
I think at any point, any company that's not taken an AI first development approach is shooting themselves in the foot and going to be left aside. And as you look at the journey of AI as it's related to software engineering, 18 months ago, there was this thought it's going to replace software engineers altogether. You had Elon Musk buy Twitter, 80% of the people. You had Mark Zuckerberg saying Meta is going to get rid of 60% of their engineers. And fast forward to where we are now, I think companies have realized that AI is not replacing software engineers, but what it's doing is making them a lot more productive and allowing them to shift their roles. And it may or may not replace junior engineers, or at least redefine junior engineers. If you're not an AI first development shop, you got an issue. Now, are there a lot of certainly there are a lot of cybersecurity companies out there, but relative to your niche, is it a very crowded space?
At this point, no, because we are taking more of a holistic platform-based approach. I mean, that's the reason why there are two big gaps that we are focused on, right? Number one is almost every organization, even when they're taking an AI first approach, they're only thinking about code vulnerabilities or code as attack vector. Interesting thing is that most people don't consider the fact that vulnerabilities are less than 25% of the attack surface. And secondly, it's reacting to a risk that already exists, right? So if you take a step back, all the CISOs, all the CTOs want a more holistic approach and look at all the other attack vectors. So what's missing from this entire puzzle is looking at the tool or the tool chain posture or misconfigurations, identifying the misconfigurations, fixing it, looking at identities, developer identities, both human and non-human, right? Identifying the risk and helping fix it, right? So that,
Gotcha.
again, the whole notion of looking at all of those attack vectors, right, is critical in the existing development world. And also, it actually becomes more and more critical in an AI-driven development environment, right? Absolutely nobody's looking at that. So, short answer to your question is that the approach that we're taking, the uniqueness of the approach is unique. No surprises there. The interesting thing is that there's already application security budget already allocated. If anything, the advent of AI is just driving the urgency about with customers, right? So that's the fun part about this. And then last but not the least is, do I expect more and more folks to actually enter into this market and take the broader holistic approach? Absolutely. And that's amazing because that validates the fact that this is the right approach and the need for a platform.
Imitation is the biggest form of flattery.
Absolutely.
That's how it goes. It looks like your company has been around just around 3 years. And so based on, you said 15, 16 months ago, you went from stealth to go to market. Tell us about that, initial, 12, 16 month period of building the MVP, of gaining investors and getting it ready for go to market. I'm sure your head was spinning a lot during those times.
Yeah. I'm sure most entrepreneurs will tell you this, right? When you start the company, you've got a sort of a definition of what the product should look like, the platform or the idea should look like. That absolutely evolves as time progresses, right? If anything, I would say it evolves aggressively, right?
Yes. There's no such thing as a static business plan, to say the least.
Exactly, right. And then honestly, Steve, what happens is that you have an idea, and then what I at least fundamentally believe in is that you have to make incremental changes or incremental shifts as you learn more and more, right? So one of the key things that we did is we took about 6 to 9 months to build the initial MVP. And then one of the key things that we did from day zero was make sure that we sort of bring in some design partners, right? Again, when I say partners, they're really customers, but they're helping us build the 1.0 of the platform, right? Super useful. And then from day zero, we wanted to make sure that we can help them, the sort of get input from them, B, help deploy our platform in those environments, right?
So clearly you did that based on experience, because that's where most software infrastructure platform companies, SaaS companies screw up, is they build it thinking they know what the end client wants and aren't getting feedback the whole way. And usually you have to fail a time or two before you really embrace that.
I agree. I wish I had a crystal ball or, like a perfect time machine so that I could go back and forth in the future and I have the perfect product. But honestly, it doesn't exist, right? So the best thing I would sort of say is, as an entrepreneur, both having made a ton of mistakes and I've had some successes, is make sure you have those design customers, make sure you check in. It's very important to have those incremental sort of steps you take in the right direction, right? So there is no notion of let's not show anything for 6 months and then do this big reveal, right? That does not work in the early days of a company, right? Again, goes back to what you and I just talked about like 5 minutes ago, right? Learn fast, fail fast, right? That is the most important thing, I would say, for the first 4 to 5 years of the company, if not even more, right? That's literally what we were doing, right? So the early stages, and I'm thankful to our early customers who helped us ironically pivot the overall strategy, right? Early on, we've just purely focused on one attack vectors, which was the developer identity. Then we realized that the worst thing for us to do is be yet another developer security solution or niche solution in the broader AppSec space, right? Very clear feedback we got from our first half a dozen design customers that they were looking for a platform to actually aggregate all the information and provide insights, right? So that helped us pivot into this broader SDLC security platform. So that was one first lesson we learned, right? Second lesson we learned, Steve, early on was make sure that your customers can find value not within the first 30 days, but within the first 1 week, right? They should be able to do a risk assessment, identify the gaps, and you provide recommendations there, right? That again helped us sort of build a platform where the customers can use literally some of the policies. They get policies from day zero, right? So this whole notion of inbuilt policies, and the whole point is to get value immediately, was again huge. Again, customer feedback, right? I don't have 30 days to actually identify value. Show me the value in the first 1 week. Again, huge learning experience, right? So these are just two of the things that we learned before we even came out of stealth, right? Again,
Gotcha.
after coming out of stealth, another set of learnings. We'll go through that later, but that's pretty much from day zero till we came out of stealth, and helped us also interact with the VCs much better.
And so what's been the go-to-market strategy since you've come out of stealth mode?
Yeah, so a couple of learnings again, right? What I almost always say is that the company success is not just about vision or technology, it's actually about alignment, right? So, early on, right before we went stealth, as I was mentioning, it was aligning with the customer's pain points, right? From day zero. Then once when we came out of stealth, it was aligning the go-to-market with the buyer expectations, right? That was again huge, right? So in terms of the go-to-market, one of the key things that we learned early on is leverage your ecosystem of partners, right? Value-added resellers, etc. Right? Absolutely leverage them to scale the go-to-market, to scale the company, right? That was number one. That was a huge thing that we learned early on in terms of our company itself, right? The second thing that we learned from a go-to-market, right, is make sure you invest in your customer success. As soon as you launch the product, as soon as you have your first paid customer, absolutely invest in customer success. And when I say customer success, technical customer success. Stress on the word technical, right? Early on, you've got to have that in space, right? So we invested super early in building up that technical customer success muscle memory, right? That helped us accelerate adoption. That helped us accelerate trust. Those are the two things I would say were early investments or early learnings in terms of how to scale the go-to-market for us, at least.
Talk about your engineering team that has built this platform that you offer. How many engineers you have, your work model, whether it's remote, hybrid, on-site.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we've got about 25 odd engineers. Again, they're based here in the Bay Area and in Hyderabad, India. And again, the reason we've got these two, what we call centers of excellence, is it's been strategically placed for impact, right? The idea behind sort of having two different teams, right, one in the Bay Area and one in Hyderabad as centers of excellence was to sort of optimize or to balance cost, to balance the talent depth, and also to sort of encourage 24/7 collaboration and building the product itself, right? What I almost always stress is the fact that these are not just development hubs, but they are actually centers of excellence that anchor a product velocity. And again, I actually do believe that although we all a lot of companies have remote engineers, early on in the life of a company, you've got to go have a core set of team in a single area. So obviously, a lot of the folks who work for us here in the Bay Area are all folks we worked with in the previous company, CloudKnox. So we all are located here in the Bay Area. So in our case, we've got almost all the senior talent based here in the Bay Area. And then,
and do you guys have an office there that you go into?
Yeah, so we are. I'll just call it flexible, right?
Okay.
Flexible in terms of our work life balance, and one of the reasons is because of the commute, right? But yes, we do go in and we meet at least a couple of times a week, at least a couple of times. Almost all core decisions between the product management team and the engineering team are all whiteboarded, and for that you absolutely need to meet together. So we certainly do that a lot here in the Bay Area, and then in India, Hyderabad, they're absolutely. I mean, we have an office there, and they do go into the office every day, right? So the biggest difference between the Bay Area and Hyderabad is in Hyderabad, India, they go in every day. That fosters a lot more collaboration here, and again, they're much more younger in terms of their experience. We do want to foster the collaboration there. Here in the Bay Area, it's gray-haired veterans like myself, so I think they do a good.
Let me ask you a question. So in markets like Hyderabad, India, are engineers normally in an office setting daily? Is remote as popular there? Now that we're all post-pandemic, far away, what's the work model in markets like India for engineers that you've seen works best?
Yeah, so in general, it's actually a function of the experience that the development team has. So the more experience you have, if it's a very senior team, then I believe that remote, remote office, remote work works quite well. But early on, if you've got engineers who are still early on in their career, it's best to actually bring them or enforce sort of having them come into the office, because it fosters the collaboration. And then the second thing that you always have to sort of consider is in the early stages of your company, what you really want to do is rapidly iterate. I use the word iterate and collaborate and stress on the word iteration. That happens when everybody is in a single office, right? That again is certainly helping us in the Hyderabad office for sure.
Remember for old guys like us, the good old days prior to the pandemic where you only worked from home or got the privilege of working remotely if you were a senior individual that has proven themselves. And then, certainly the pandemic changed all that. I'm a big believer in the remote model, but there are definitely, that's meant for experienced senior people, not for the younger generation, although they don't like to accept that, but they need to learn. They need to learn from peers and learn more about company politics and how to get things done and how to drive ideas through.
Yeah. Steve, look, the only one other caveat I would add, Steve, is that when you're early on in terms of defining and designing your product, it is extremely important to foster that whole notion of exchange of ideas. I certainly have seen that, when you bring people together in a room, the exchange of ideas happens organically as opposed to when we are working remotely, it doesn't necessarily happen naturally, right?
You have to force it more remotely. Yeah. Definitely agree there. Now, how have you created good bonds between your team in the Bay Area and your team in India with the vastly different time zones? How do you make sure they're aligned, that they have similar cultures, that there's smooth handoffs?
Yeah, so in terms of just the two centers of excellence, right? The overall team does a phenomenal job of syncing up at least twice a day. So the best way to think about it is, so early on in the morning here in the Pacific time zone, there's the equivalent of a handoff that happens between the Hyderabad team and the US-based team, right? And then in the evenings, late in the evenings, then a similar kind of handoff happens there, right? So one of the things that we have done really well is making sure that the team, especially because the team is junior in India, they sort of, the seniors here, the senior architects, the senior engineers here in the Bay Area spend enough time teaching, training, and encouraging the team in India, right? So that helps them understand what they're building, right? And then having, I would say daily stand-ups. And when I say stand-ups, at least a couple of times a day in the morning and evening helps sort of make sure that everybody's aligned. Again, right? What I say almost always is the one brutal lesson I've learned, I would say a bit later on in my career is that product success is not about the vision or technology. It's all about alignment, right? I cannot stress that anymore, right? So that's
Well,
fundamentally what we do.
expand on that and some brutal lessons that you've learned.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, early on, again, goes back to we had multiple, again, early on in the life of BlueFlag Security, right? I mean, we had multiple remote teams and everybody was developing in, I would say, in their own little silos, right? The lack of coordination quickly sort of led to sort of misalignment, right? So, as in, like, they didn't spend enough time understanding what each and every individual team or individual members were doing, and then eventually, it was a Frankenstein of a product, right? Early on, right? Good news is that we caught it early. Goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, right? Which is check-in, right? So we were checking in, but we didn't do a good job of checking in more frequently. So that's when we decided, look, let's go have centers of excellence and then check in also early, right? So that was one notion of alignment purely from a product perspective. Second one on the alignment side was aligning the product with what we're building in the product versus what customers' needs are, right? Again, right? Have that alignment early on, right? Make sure that the customer understands what you're building and gather your requirements from the customer, not based on what you think you need to be building. So again, that was again really critical for us. We did that. Like I said again, that's where your design customers, design partners help a lot, right? And third, honestly, right now is alignment wise is making sure that my pre-sales team, my customer success team, and my engineering team, right? They're the holy trifecta, as I call them. They're always in alignment with for all our big customers. And we, for a company our size, we've got quite a few, I would say, significantly large companies that have deployed our solution. Again, goes back to got to be aligned to make sure that customers are getting value and customers are very happy with your platform.
Gotcha. So, being the fact that you're located in the San Francisco Bay Area, that's where the core of your senior team is. You have the Silicon Valley culture, which brings some extraordinarily talent. And then it also brings some other things that sometimes can be challenging. There's this buzzword out there called the 996 culture, where Silicon Valley companies are adopting it from it kind of originated in China, and it's about working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week because you have to innovate fast or you're going to be left out. And I'm all for the work hard, play hard mentality, but you got the fine balance of burning people out. What's your take on that, especially with your company, headquartered in that mecca of madness, so to speak?
That's actually a phenomenal question, Steve. Look, I mean, for us, one of the things that we do is it's flexible working hours, right? I mean, honestly, it's all about have you agreed on in terms of building a certain set of capabilities or certain set of things from a product perspective, from an engineering perspective. It does not matter to us where and how we build it, as long as the deliverables are met, right? And a lot of us have kids, and so we try and balance work, our personal life and our work life, right? And that's literally what we do. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's what I say is being an entrepreneur, and look, all 25 of us are entrepreneurs, so to speak, right? It's not for the faint of the heart. Absolutely agree with
Yes.
that statement, right? Especially early on, because I would say it is structured chaos. That's probably a better way to say it, because you are making progress, but then you also have to kind of iterate fast, change directions fast. Occasionally, that does lead to 996 kind of culture. But look, I mean, what we try and do is, number one, is make sure that there is a work-life balance. Take care of your personal pieces, work around your personal commitments, right? That's number one. And then honestly, like the usage of AI coding tools is actually helping us increase that efficiency, right? So we're able to get more out of each and every developer. Again, goes back to the productivity piece, right? That's sort of the way we do it. And then the other piece is like if when we meet once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, we don't just work hard, right? We take time to also sort of spend time like either doing lunches, dinners, or what have you, right? Which again helps us build the right culture, right? It's super
Yes.
important to also build the company culture, right? Both in Hyderabad and obviously here in the Bay Area from an engineering perspective, and similarly with the go-to-market team too, right? So we certainly do that a lot.
Excellent. Raj, thank you so much for getting uncensored with us today. You've had a great journey as kind of an entrepreneur building within organizations to entrepreneur. And it sounds like your current venture, BlueFlag Security, is well positioned to dominate. Thank you for coming on the show, sharing these lessons learned. Before we wrap, what's your final no BS advice for tech leaders out there who are trying to build, scale, or just survive right now?
I mean, look, I would say, something that I've repeated in the past, right? Please do not be myopically focused only on the technology and the vision. Super important. And this again happens a lot for the technology leaders, especially because a lot of the founders are technical by nature, not necessarily go to market, right? Please make sure the success of the company, success of the product is all about aligning with your customers, aligning with the go-to-market team. And then I would say the piece of advice I would give is focus on alignment, not just on vision and technology, and focus on outside in alignment, which implies highly recommend you guys also focusing on building a customer success team early on. That's what I would sort of say, right? Align with customers, align a go-to-market with customers, align a product, vision, and technology with customers. I mean, the one common theme you see there is I'm overusing the word customers, right? But and the word alignment. That's it. Do that, you'll be good.
I like it. Raj, thank you so much. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, we're just going to send it to your competitors, probably the edge they're looking for. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time.
Thank you, Steve.
That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.